Ellen DeGeneres had experienced countless memorable audience interactions over her decades-long career, from spontaneous marriage proposals to surprise family reunions, but nothing could have prepared her for the afternoon when a seemingly routine chat with her viewers would evolve into one of the most emotionally complex and morally challenging moments of her hosting experience. What started as light-hearted banter became a profound exploration of unintended consequences and the weight of life-changing decisions made in the name of inspiration. It was a bright Wednesday afternoon at the Ellen Studios, and the atmosphere was particularly energetic as they prepared for what was scheduled to be an uplifting episode focused on personal transformation stories. Ellen, wearing a vibrant teal blazer over white jeans, was in excellent spirits as she looked forward to celebrating people who had made positive changes in their lives. The studio was filled with an enthusiastic audience that included many longtime fans who had traveled from across the country to attend the taping. Ellen had just finished interviewing Marcus Williams, a former gang member who had turned his life around and now ran a successful youth mentorship program in Chicago, when she decided to spend some time connecting with her audience before introducing the next segment. These impromptu conversations were among Ellen's favorite parts of hosting, often producing genuine moments of connection that reminded her why she loved daytime television. Before we continue, I want to talk to some of you amazing people out there, Ellen announced, walking toward the audience with her characteristic warmth and energy. I love hearing your stories, and I have a feeling some of you have incredible transformations to share too. As Ellen moved through the crowd, engaging in her usual friendly exchanges with audience members, she noticed a woman in the fifth row who had been trying to get her attention throughout the show. The woman appeared to be in her late 30s, with shoulder-length auburn hair and wearing a navy cardigan over a white blouse. What struck Ellen most was the intensity in the woman's eyes, not the typical excitement of a fan meeting their idol, but something more urgent and complicated. "You've been trying to get my attention all day," Ellen said with a smile, approaching the woman. "What's your name?" "My name is Patricia Morgan, and I'm from Denver," the woman replied, her voice carrying a tremor that suggested she was nervous about something more significant than meeting a celebrity. "Nice to meet you, Patricia. You seem like you have something important on your mind." Patricia nodded earnestly, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "Ellen, I need to tell you something that's been weighing on me for months, and I think you need to hear it." Ellen felt a familiar tingle of alertness that came from years of live television experience. Patricia's tone suggested this wasn't going to be a typical fan interaction. "Okay, Patricia, what's on your mind?" Patricia took a deep breath, looking around at the other audience members and cameras before focusing back on Ellen. 3 years ago, I watched an episode of your show where you featured a woman who had left her corporate job to start a nonprofit. She talked about following her passion and living authentically, and you said something that changed my life." Ellen smiled, pleased to hear about the positive impact of her show. "That's wonderful, Patricia. What did I say that resonated with you?" "You said that life is too short to spend it doing something that doesn't feed your soul. You said that sometimes we have to take big risks to find our true purpose." Patricia's voice was growing stronger, but Ellen could see tears forming in her eyes. "That sounds like something I would say," Ellen replied warmly. "Did it inspire you to make a change?" "It did," Patricia said, and now the tears were beginning to fall. "Ellen, that night I went home and quit my job as a financial advisor. I had been miserable for years, just going through the motions, and your words gave me the courage to finally do something about it." Ellen felt a warm glow of satisfaction. This was exactly the kind of story she loved to hear, how her show had inspired someone to pursue their dreams. "Patricia, that's incredible. What did you decide to do instead?" But Patricia's expression wasn't joyful. Instead, she looked tormented as she continued. "I decided to follow my passion for art. I had always loved painting, and I thought I could make it work financially if I just believed in myself enough." Ellen began to sense that this story might not have the happy ending she had anticipated. "And how did that go?" Patricia's composure completely crumbled. "Ellen, it was a disaster. A complete disaster. I burned through our savings in 8 months. I couldn't sell my paintings, couldn't get gallery representation, couldn't make enough to support my family. Ellen felt a sinking sensation in her stomach as she realized where this conversation was heading. Patricia, what happened? We lost our house, Patricia sobbed, no longer caring that she was breaking down in front of 400 strangers and millions of television viewers. We lost everything. My husband had to take out massive loans to keep us afloat. My 2 kids had to change schools, leave their friends, move in with my mother-in-law in a tiny apartment. The studio had fallen completely silent as the audience absorbed the gravity of what Patricia was sharing. Ellen felt a complex mix of emotions, sympathy for Patricia's pain, but also a growing sense of responsibility for the role her words had played in these devastating consequences. Patricia, I'm so sorry, Ellen said, moving closer to where Patricia was sitting. That must have been incredibly difficult for your family. It gets worse, Patricia continued, her voice breaking. My husband of 15 years, he couldn't handle the stress, the financial pressure, the shame of losing our home, the constant worry about the children's future. He filed for divorce 6 months ago. Ellen felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. This woman's entire life had been destroyed, and she was claiming it all started with inspiration from Ellen's show. Patricia, I don't know what to say. Ellen, I need you to understand something, Patricia said, looking directly at her with desperate intensity. I'm not blaming you. I made the choice to quit my job. I made the choice to pursue art without a realistic plan. But your words, they made it seem so simple. Follow your passion, take the risk, and everything would work out. Ellen felt the weight of unintended consequences settling on her shoulders. Patricia, when I talk about following your dreams, I never mean to suggest that it's easy or that there aren't risks involved. But that's how it comes across, Patricia replied, her voice growing stronger through her tears. Every story you feature is about someone who took a leap of faith and succeeded. You never show the people who took the same leap and crashed. Ellen looked around the studio, acutely aware that this conversation was being broadcast live to millions of viewers. She had several options. She could try to deflect responsibility, she could cut to commercial, or she could engage honestly with the complexity of what Patricia was sharing. Patricia, you're right, Ellen said, making a choice that surprised even herself. I think I have been presenting an oversimplified version of what it means to follow your dreams. I focus on the success stories because they're inspiring, but maybe I haven't been responsible about acknowledging the risks. Patricia seemed surprised by Ellen's willingness to engage with her criticism. Ellen, I watch your show every day. Even now, even after everything that happened, I still believe in the message of following your passion, but I think people need to hear about the failures too, not just the successes. Ellen sat down in a chair that had been brought over for her, positioning herself at Patricia's eye level. Patricia, can you tell me more about what happened with your art? Was there any way it could have worked out differently? Maybe, Patricia admitted. If I had been more realistic about the timeline, if I had kept my day job while building my art career slowly, if I had done more research about the market. But Ellen, your show made it seem like those kinds of compromises were giving up on your dreams. Ellen felt a profound sense of responsibility settling over her. Patricia, I think you've identified something really important about how I talk about dreams and passion. I may have been sending the message that anything less than a dramatic leap of faith isn't authentic or brave enough. She turned to address the audience and cameras directly. You know, folks, I think Patricia is teaching us something crucial here. I've spent years encouraging people to follow their dreams, and I still believe that's important. But maybe I haven't been clear enough about the difference between following your dreams and doing it responsibly. Ellen looked back at Patricia. Patricia, what would you want me to say to someone who's watching right now and feeling inspired to make a big change in their life? Patricia wiped her eyes and thought carefully before responding. I would want you to tell them that dreams are worth pursuing, but that they deserve to pursue them in a way that doesn't destroy everything else they've built. That taking care of your family's security isn't giving up on your dreams, it's being responsible about how you pursue them. Ellen nodded thoughtfully. That's incredibly wise advice. Patricia, what are you doing now? How are you and your children? I went back to financial advising, Patricia said with a rueful smile. It turns out that even though I don't love it, I'm good at it, and my children need stability more than they need a mother who's pursuing her artistic dreams at their expense. And your art? I still paint. Every weekend, every evening after work. I'm building my skills slowly, building a client base gradually. Maybe someday I'll be able to transition to art full time, but if I do, it will be with a plan and a safety net. Ellen felt a complex mix of admiration and sadness as she listened to Patricia's story. Patricia, it sounds like you've found a way to honor both your dreams and your responsibilities. I'm trying to, Patricia replied. But Ellen, I need you to know that what happened to my family, it didn't just affect us. My children's friends at school heard about why we moved, why Daddy left. Some of their parents started questioning their own career choices, wondering if they were sellouts for staying in jobs they didn't love. Ellen realized that Patricia's story was revealing something much larger than one family's struggle. Patricia, are you saying that my message about following dreams might be causing guilt for people who choose stability over passion? I think so, yes. I think there are a lot of people out there who watch your show and feel bad about themselves because they're not brave enough to quit their jobs and follow their hearts. But maybe they're not cowards. Maybe they're just being realistic about their responsibilities. Ellen stood up and began pacing slightly, processing the implications of what Patricia was sharing. Patricia, this is one of the most important conversations I've ever had on this show. You're making me realize that I may have been presenting a false choice between dreams and responsibility. She turned to the audience. How many of you have ever felt guilty for staying in a job you didn't love because you needed to support your family? Hands went up throughout the studio, and Ellen could see that Patricia's story was resonating with many people. And how many of you have ever felt like you were failing at life because you weren't brave enough to pursue your passion full time? Even more hands went up, and Ellen felt the weight of unintended consequences settling more heavily on her shoulders. Patricia, what you're teaching us today is that maybe we need to redefine what it means to be brave. Maybe being brave isn't just about taking big risks. Maybe it's also about making thoughtful choices that honor both our dreams and our responsibilities. Patricia nodded emphatically. Ellen, I still believe in following your passion, but I think we need to talk more about how to do it wisely. How to pursue dreams without destroying the good things you already have. Ellen made a decision that would influence how she talked about dreams and career changes for the rest of her hosting career. Patricia, would you be willing to come back to the show in a few months? I'd like to feature a segment about responsible dream chasing, and I think your perspective would be invaluable. I would love that, Patricia said, smiling genuinely for the first time since the conversation began. Ellen addressed the cameras one final time. You know, folks, Patricia came here today and gave me one of the most important gifts anyone has ever given me. She showed me that even well-intentioned messages can have unintended consequences, and that sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is complicate simple advice. She looked back at Patricia. Patricia, thank you for having the courage to tell me this story. Thank you for holding me accountable for the impact of my words. And thank you for showing us that wisdom sometimes means learning from our mistakes and adjusting our approach. The segment ended with Ellen and Patricia embracing, but the conversation continued to reverberate long after the cameras stopped rolling. The episode aired exactly as it had unfolded, sparking widespread discussion about the responsibility of media figures and the complexity of career advice. 3 months later, Patricia returned to the show as promised. She and Ellen co-hosted a segment called Dreams with Safety Nets, featuring people who had successfully transitioned to new careers while maintaining financial stability and family security. Patricia, Ellen said during that follow-up episode, how has your life changed since our first conversation? Well, I'm still working as a financial advisor, but I've started specializing in helping artists and creative professionals manage their finances and plan career transitions responsibly. It turns out my artistic background actually makes me better at my day job because I understand both sides of the equation. And your art, growing steadily. I had my first gallery show last month, and I sold 3 paintings. It's not enough to quit my day job, but it's progress. Real, sustainable progress. Ellen smiled with genuine warmth. Patricia, you've taught me that sometimes the most radical thing we can do is be patient with our dreams. Thank you for making me a more responsible host. The original episode became one of Ellen's most discussed segments, not because it was entertaining, but because it addressed the complex reality of balancing dreams with responsibilities. It led to Ellen incorporating more nuanced career advice into her show and featuring more stories about gradual, thoughtful life changes alongside the dramatic transformation narratives. What Patricia taught me that day, Ellen reflected months later, is that inspiration without context can be dangerous. My job isn't just to motivate people, it's to help them think through the implications of their choices. Sometimes the most helpful thing I can do is slow people down, not speed them up. Because sometimes the most important conversations happen when someone has the courage to challenge our assumptions and show us the unintended consequences of our words. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is not inspiration, but wisdom about how to pursue inspiration responsibly.